南美跟踪飞船结束。
南美跟踪结束。
长城报告，申请发送主反并网手控指令。
北京明白。神舟15号，我是北京，发送主反并网手控指令。
神舟15号北京。上机。神舟15号报告，主反并网手控指令已发出，完毕。
北京明白。各号注意，返回制动，5分钟准备。
So you were talking about handovers, but for this Shenzhou-15 crew, they did not only China's first ever handover, but also the second one, right? With the crew that's been up there already. But so 6 months on the space station, that's a pretty long time. I think they're just short of the last crew that was up there by a couple of hours or something. So it's a very close sort of time, the Shenzhou-14 and 15.
The last Shenzhou-14 was 183. I
so
think
they're
they
actually
actually spent slightly longer.
But 6 months up in the space station, I mean, that's quite a challenging length of time for any human to be sort of outside of their comfort zone, right? I mean, and
it is,
14 and 15, they both crews did that. But what would you say were the biggest differences between the two missions then?
Right, the Shenzhou-14 mission was actually the major construction phase. You know, the lab module gets launched, get attached and transposed to the sideways. So it's the major sort of very visible construction work for the Shenzhou-14, which is they've done admirably. And then the 15 is sort of more nuanced, sort of lots and lots of internal decoration
bits,
things,
right.
putting the science racks into place, especially. So they're not just the commissioning of the construction. They also began the experiments essentially, because the announcement for the finishing of the construction phase was I think it was March or February this year. So that was bang in the middle of their mission. So they are sort of the transitional crew into regular running of the space station as well. So they really set the example and help to determine the procedures that would be useful for later sort of the regular running. So that actually is a vital thing if you want to do things smoothly. There are 25 racks, not the number of experiments. Usually a scientist only look after one experiment, and then they have to just do a ridiculous number of them.
I think we're just hearing now that the Shenzhou-15, the return capsule, is adjusting its altitude for the first time.
It's turning its direction in your direction about 90 degrees. You can see this is a 3D animation.
Yeah, we can see that in the top right
and
corner.
Also you can see the video camera mounted inside the re-entry capsule. We still can see the 3 astronauts because we have the Tianlian data relay satellite, so we can transmit the video via the Tianlian data relay satellite.
So now that it's adjusted, what is it facing Earth in terms of the I guess the tip of the capsule?
It's facing left, I believe.
It's flying sideways.
Okay, separated.
That is the separation of the.
So as Woolley has
module,
mentioned,
the
this is
capsule.
separation between the re-entry capsule and the orbital module, because you know that the total mass of the Shenzhou spacecraft is about 8 tons.
So what we're looking at here right now.
Yes, it's the remaining 2 modules. And the next will also turn another 90 degrees.
And it's just adjusted its position again.
Yeah, so you can see the 3D animation. You can see that the attitude control engines are working. You can see the flame of the attitude control engines. And then will be the re-entry burn.
So this bit right now is the re-entry capsule. This is where the astronauts are.
On the left is the re-entry capsule. On the right is the propulsion module.
Okay, and that will separate as well a little bit later.
Later, but before that, there will be a critical step to the re-entry burn, which means that the main engine will work for several seconds and turn the orbit from the orbit circling around Earth to a trajectory that can entering the atmosphere.
We've just heard from the ground control there that this adjustment has been made and it's now in position.
Accomplished.
Yes.
You can see that the direction is very carefully designed. The direction just towards the backward, but also you know that there are 4 engines at the rear part of the propulsion module. Each has a thrust about 2,500 newtons, and we only need 2 of the engines. Okay, the main engine is working.
Right.
You can see the 3D animation on the top right of the screen.
That's
yeah,
right.
that's the 3D animation, but which represents the real condition.
发动机开机，返回制动开始。
Great. So the main engine will work several hundreds, and the perigee of the trajectory will be lowered.
So at this point, is this all controlled from ground control, or are the astronauts doing any of this?
No, it depends on the vehicle itself. It is automatically
it's all
deployed.
programmed.
Yeah, it's programmed. And also you can see that the besides the working of the main engines, also the attitude control engines are working. The attitude control engines can make the vehicle very stable in its attitude during this burning.
So when you say it's completely programmed, so then the space capsule, the return capsule, once it reaches a certain point, then it registers that it needs to change, adjust its altitude, etc. Or is this? There's at no point is there no manual input?
Pretty much no manual input, apart from the last step of cutting the parachute, which is why if you look at the video feed, they're not doing anything; they're just sitting there.
Yeah.
Although this is a 3D animation, but the animation is based on the real data received from the through the telemetry data from the vehicle itself. So it's a real condition.
Well, actually, now that we're looking at this, if you could talk us through the whole process of the return back to Earth, starting from when the spacecraft separates from the space station, please, on Saturday night, I think that was. So what happens from that stage? How long does this whole journey take, really, Professor Zhang?
Right, so we just witnessed the first step. So it turned 90 degrees, flying sideways to lose the orbital module, and then it turned another 90 degrees and start this re-entry burn to slow it down so it can get into the atmosphere. And then the next step would be the service module, the propulsion module will be jettisoned as well. Mm-hmm. And then you have just the tip of that thing, the re-entry module. Sort of you would adjust this posture and then sort of begin sliding down into the.
Great, it's already burned out.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
great. So at this moment, the whole vehicle already entered the re-entry trajectory.
发动机关机，返回制动结束。北京引导数据已发出。黄河。
黄河明白。
And these are different observation stations that are.
Yeah. So we can hear the voice in the Beijing Flight Control Center. The commander just reports these status to every station around China.
And they're reporting back on what they're seeing and if everything is in order.
山海。
So there's various communications with the different stations. So, sorry, Professor Zhang, you were saying.
Right. So soon they'll lose the service module, and then the re-entry module will have to adjust its posture to enter at the correct angle. If too shallow, it will just bounce off the atmosphere and back into space, and then it will be a messy affair. And if too steep, you come in too fast, and then the heat will be too much. So that's so currently they need to really check everything is moving at the right parameters, and then.
And at this stage, there's still no adjustment needed manually. It's all just completely programmed.
Yeah.
Programmed. Right.
At this moment, although it's already entered the re-entry trajectory, which means that about half an hour later they will enter the atmosphere. But at this moment, still, because it is still above the atmosphere, so they can still use the data relay satellite to transmit the videos inside the capsule. So you can see the 3 astronauts.
Are they holding manuals there? Is that sort of an
yes,
instruction guide?
Especially Commander Fei Junlong. Because you know that there are so many uncertainties during the re-entry, so he must be aware of everything. There are also what they should do in abnormal cases on their manual.
How long have they already been in this capsule for? I mean, they separated on Saturday night.
About 9:30 p.m. last
Saturday night.
Yeah. So
almost 9 hours.
You can see on the right of the screen is the landing site. Probably this is a camera mounted on the helicopter.
Yeah, so the search teams are already in place and waiting for them to arrive. And how accurate is this window for landing in terms of when they would arrive? Is this all very kind of calculated down to the minute, down to the hour?
The minutes.
In minutes.
Right. So it's similar to the launch window. the landing site has to be, in the same orbital plane. The Earth is rotating underneath the orbit. You can think of orbit as fixed circle in the universe, and then the Earth is rotating around it. The trajectory of the orbit just have to be on top of the landing site for that to work. But it's less demanding. So
we've already seen the dawn of the landing site.
Yes, exactly.
Very beautiful.
So, exactly, very beautiful. So that leads me to ask. So this time they're picking dawn in the morning for the landing, but with the last crew who returned, it was at nighttime, wasn't it? And also a different season. So last time I think it was December, early December. What is calculated here? What sort of factors into their decision of when this should be?
As you mentioned, it's correct. Every time it's different. The key point is that the moment we choose to leave the orbit is a moment just that the landing site is rotating along with the Earth. So only at the moment the landing site is rotated to the orbital plane of the Shenzhou spacecraft can we get the return procedure. So that is the reason why every time it is different.
And how far ahead can they plan for something like this?
They must plan very carefully about that.
Oh, we just had an update there from Shenzhou-15, and they're saying that everything is normal.
Yes, we should also notice, that we have inertial measurement units, the gyroscopes and the accelerometers. We also have the Beidou navigation satellite receiver on our Shenzhou spacecraft. And also we have the optical telescopes and readers in our ground stations. So combining the data collected from all these sensors, we can have a very accurate prediction of the trajectory. So that is the reason why the rescue team can find the capsule as soon as possible and reach the capsule as soon as possible.
And they're obviously, improving on the time that it takes to find the crew now, aren't they? I mean, what sort of a kind of difference would you say there is between, say, the first search crew that went out to receive the first manned mission and now?
So they can't be directly under above the landing site because the re-entry capsule will jettison its heat shield before landing, and you don't want that to hit one of the helicopters. But then the helicopters can be there like within minutes. But the ground crew, depending on the terrain, it's Gobi Desert. It's not the kind of sand desert that's impossible to traverse, but it's still there's rocks, boulders, and everything. So depending on the terrain, it may take them half an hour or something like that
half an hour. How long did it take the first ever search crew to receive the first ever returning astronauts? Do you remember?
It depends on the accuracy of the prediction.
Right. So for the first,
every time you see that, you may hear from the commander. So if you have 3 to 4 times, the commander in the Beijing Flight Control Center will announce the predicted landing time.
下面通报返回舱第一次落点预报。
Great.
Right, we just had
the first prediction.
Announcement from the ground control there.
动4分58秒，东经幺洞洞度动4分58秒。
So they're just giving a prediction of the landing site, right? Initial landing site.
It's bang in the middle of the target.
The commander in Beijing.
That red dot that went.
The commander in Beijing Flight Control Center is announcing the latitude and the longitude of the predicted landing point.
But that is likely to adjust a little bit throughout.
It's different from the theoretical landing point. The theoretical one is only that's the calculated one. So that during the re-entry, especially just we have already witnessed of the re-entry burn. So there are errors on the re-entry burn. So it's not the same as the predicted one. So that is the reason why we need these the measurements of the trajectory and then give another updated prediction.
Are we usually talking about a difference of, say, a couple of kilometers, or maybe a far bigger range than that in terms of the difference between the predicted?
It's bigger than that. That's the total area of the landing site is tens of thousands square kilometers.
Okay. So far bigger than a few kilometers.
After the modification and the correction of the first prediction, the landing area can shrink to about 36 36 kilometers times 36 kilometers. So it's already very, very small.
Wow.
And after that, you know that as we've already heard the first prediction, and then they will have the second and the third time. It becomes smaller and smaller, and finally it will be very, very accurate.
At what point will we get the final prediction? How far?
After
ahead would that
deployment
be?
of the main parachute.
Okay, and that will be. But so after the parachutes deploy, how long until they land?
Yeah. But there is also another factor. You see that there are wind in the landing site. So even sometimes there are very strong wind. So after the deployment of the main parachute, you know, at this moment, the re-entry capsule will not have any control. You know, before the deployment of the parachute, they do have the control, the attitude control of the re-entry capsule. With the control, we can change or modify the trajectory to the design, the landing point. But after the deployment, we can do nothing. So with the influence of the wind, we must consider this factor and give a more precise prediction of the landing site.
Professor Zhang, how long would you say the astronauts, how long would they have to be preparing for this? I mean, it's you know, as exciting going up as it is coming home, isn't it? Like, how long would the preparation procedure be for the astronauts and for the ground control?
Right, for them, you know, obviously there's the handover issues. I don't know whether that counts towards their returning. I mean, they need to hand over all the life support status of the experiments, especially, you know, some of the biological experiments. If you're doing raising bacteria, you don't look after them carefully for 3 hours, they're all dead. So all those sort of things will take up a lot of time, and then they need to they are taking down some of the experimental results with them, so they need to pack those very carefully and make lists and all that. And also they need to exercise. They've been in zero gravity for so long.
Yes.
You know, they're going to be experiencing not just 1G, but you know, 2-3 Gs during their re-entry. So they need to be able to handle that. So that's part of the equation as well. So they've been preparing for at least a week.
I mean, exercise is something they've been doing during the whole 6 months, right? Would there be different sort of exercises to prepare them for coming back?
Well, I don't know.
Imagine so.
I would imagine so, yeah. But you know, specifics, I don't know the details. Yeah.
And the ground staff as well. I mean, there's a lot of preparation work involved for them as well.
Right. There's full dress rehearsal beforehand, and the whole team gets refamiliarized with the procedure. They do this every 6 months, so they're all experts. But
they have search and rescue drills as well, don't they? I think they've had a few rehearsals already for that in the last few days.
Exactly.
Right.
The rehearsal is also very, very important to find any malfunction of any subsystems of the rescue team. You know that they have 5 helicopters and several ground vehicles. So the rehearsal is very, very important, especially, you know, that the communication between the different vessels and ground vehicles is also very, very important for them to find the astronauts as soon as possible and reach there as soon as possible. And as Professor Zhang has already mentioned, we also have some biological experiment examples. You know that it is very interesting. During the launch of the Tianzhou-15 cargo spacecraft, we do have some samples. Just several hours before the launch, we made the stem cells. The stem cells, you know, that need a very strict condition for storage in the air conditioner to deliver that to the Tiangong space station. And this time, it is reported that the result of the experiment has been brought back by the Shenzhou-15 crew. So this is a very high-level biological experiments. It needs a lot of, you know, the sample must be taken care very carefully. And also be brought in time. Some
very careful packing to do before they leave. I mean, they've been on the road for, I guess, nearly 9 hours now, right? I mean, this is, well, we're getting another update there from. Sounds like another ground station that's reporting on the status.
Yes.
The spacecraft.
You know that along the re-entry trajectory of our re-entry capsule, there are several ground stations, both outside China and inside China. So along the usually in the years before, along the eastern coast of Africa, we have several ground stations in African countries, and also in Karachi in Pakistan, we also have a ground station. Usually the range capital touching the atmosphere just between the Karachi station and our Kashi station in Xinjiang Autonomous Region. So at this point, as we have already discussed, we will conduct the separation of the re-entry capsule and the propulsion margin. Okay, the Shenzhou-15 crew is reporting their status.
I mean, they look very calm and relaxed there, but this whole experience for them, I mean, I know that the astronauts are trying to keep to Beijing time, right? Whilst they're living in the space station, their routine.
Based on Beijing time.
Right, so which means that they have been up all night. Or would they be sleeping during this return? I imagine they're too excited. There's too much going on, right? They can't be catnapping or anything. So they have been awake for, far longer than they normally would be. So this experience for them coming down, is it generally quite a easy journey and a comfortable experience until a certain point, Professor Zhang?
Well, they can see the flames burning outside soon, and then later when they hit the ground, it will be the speed would be reduced to 1 or 2 meters per second, but that's like brisk walking straight into a wall, so that's still some.
You know that the total volume of the Shenzhou capsule is about 3 to 4 cubic meters, so it's very narrow. You can recognize the Shenzhou spaceship as a taxi between the ground and the Tiangong space station. So that this time the time duration of the return has already been greatly shortened comparing with the Shenzhou-12 mission.
How long was that
only
one?
about 6 to 7 hours. So it's more convenient than the before former missions. To ensure that the astronauts stay in a very narrow volume as short as possible. So that is the optimization of our work.
Professor Zhang, you were saying about the the burning for the capsule when it re-enters the atmosphere, it will be essentially on fire, right? As it's kind of coming through. But there's so much heat proofing that has to be done. How much do the astronauts feel inside?
They don't feel any temperature rise at all. So the burning will be most severe around when they're 50 kilometers above. So there's a blackout period where the burning is so intense. The entire capsule is enclosed by a layer of plasma, and radio waves can't travel through that plasma, which is why you can't hear anything coming from the inside at that time. That'll last
communication blackout, right?
Yeah, that'll last about 5 minutes. So that period will probably be the most difficult most lonely for them, for certainly.
So we won't be able to communicate to them. We won't be able to see any video either. There's nothing, just nothing at all. We won't get anything. From
In
them,
the
right?
blackout area, you cannot see anything. But at this moment, they are still above the atmosphere, so we can see the video camera mounted inside the re-entry capsule. The video is transmitted by the Tianlian data relay satellite, so we can clearly see. At this moment, the 3 astronauts are still in microgravity environment. But when the spacecraft are touching the atmosphere, gradually they will experience the G forces.
What, if you can explain that to us in kind of more simple terms, what's the pressure of that like on the astronauts? How many?
The peak value will be 3 to 4 times of your own weight.
So it would feel like 3 or 4 times,
3
your
or
weight
4
on top of
above
you.
your body.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly speaking, in normal procedure, it's about 3.6 G. Which means that the forces acting on your body about 3.4 times of your own mass. But that's the normal case. In an emergency, absolutely will not happen this time. In an emergency re-entry, because the trajectory will be more deeper, so theoretically speaking, the peak value can reach to 8 G. And that even at this moment, the astronauts, especially the commander and the pilot, should have the ability to piloting the ship. So that's the requirement to the pilot, very, very strict.
So they just have to endure all this pressure.
Even at the 8G, you can pilot in the ship.
Wow, that's I can't imagine it. But you know, I think we talked about this before, Professor Yang, I think when we were here for the last landing. But there's this belief that people pass out, that astronauts pass out on their way back. But this doesn't normally happen, does it?
That doesn't normally,
And
but it do happen in other countries
ship,
before.
If it's AG, then yeah.
Then it's very possible that they might.
Yeah, you know that several years before, there is a Russian spacecraft called the Soyuz MS-10. And because of the malfunction of the launch vehicle, it suffered emergency re-entry. So the peak value of the G-forces is much greater than the ordinary cases. So just several years before this happened. But you know, although as we have already seen, the re-entry burn has already been conducted very successfully. So we can say that during the re-entries, the G-forces will be very smooth as the normal case. And the next critical step for the Shenzhou spaceship will be the separation of the re-entry capsule and the propulsion module. This is also very, very important.
That should happen quite soon, shouldn't it? I think. Professor Zhang, what would you say is the most dangerous part of this journey back for the astronauts?
When the parachute opens, that's the most critical step. I mean, all the other sort of retro rocket in the end, I'll just make it more comfortable. But really, sort of life or death is the opening of the parachute.
Why is that?
It's a massive parachute that's really light, and whenever you open up a really large parachute, there's always the danger of things get tangled up and stuff like that.
So it's more kind of a malfunction, potentially, and just an accident, like things being tangled.
Yeah, and it's more difficult to control. It's a passive system. It's not like a rocket you can control. It's you know, there's air current and everything. That if the parachute
doesn't open,
and then the parachute has to be opened in many steps. There's like 3 parachutes, and then the main one would open just partially initially, and then open full wide, and all that is done passively.
From the right of the screen, we can see that the attitude of the Shenzhou spacecraft has changed again. Right. I believe that they are preparing for the separation of the propulsion module. So I believe that we can see that within several minutes.
So let me just ask. So we're looking at this image. This image is this sort of us looking up at the spacecraft. Is that the kind of angle that?
Yeah. It's upside down. And next will be the separation. And you know that we have the heating shield on the re-entry capsule, but do not have similar measures on the propulsion module. So we can see a lot of debris during the re-entry. That is the debris of the propulsion module, because we don't need that again.
We just heard that from the ground control that all the airborne rescue teams are all in position and standing by.
Yes. And as we have already mentioned, there were several times the Flight Control Center will announce the newest or the updated prediction of the landing point, and they will maneuver either both of the helicopters and the ground vehicles will change their direction to the predicted landing site. And also, as Professor Zhang has mentioned, not at the right place, because when after deployment of the main chute, they were also jettisoning the main shield. Okay, separation conducted.
I think we'll see the image, probably see the computer image of it very soon, right? The simulation.
We can hear the voice that the commander has announced that the separation has already been conducted.
Yeah, and we'll be able to see it ourselves in a little bit, I imagine.
So this is a video from the helicopter. We can see the Gobi Desert.
What sort of kind of a rescue formation would this be in? Would it be kind of on bordering the projected? Would it be kind of a net? The rescue teams would be in a formation of a net kind of around the projected point, or would they just be moving in units, you know, as the projected landing point changes? Would you know?
They are in formations. You know that there is a helicopter acted as the commanding unit, and also we have the other 4 in different directions. So they are just have a formation flying. and also the ground vehicle. You know that there are several teams for the medical teams and those in charge of the Shenzhou spacecraft and also other teams. So they are just they move very constantly.
They must have several medical teams as well, right? Because in case they land in different areas. And
so you know that every time, as I have mentioned, there are errors in the re-entry burn itself, and also you know that we Shenzhou spaceship conducted a controlled re-entry.
我是北京，下面通报返回舱第2次落点预报。
Okay, the second prediction.
Yeah, that's right. That's from the ground control there.
动5分，动动秒。
We have the second projected landing point there.
动5分，动动秒。
Also
落点纬度
spot on the
4-1度
theoretical
3拐
one,
分
so
54秒。
everything's
北
going
纬
really
4-1
smoothly.
度3拐分54秒。北京第2次落点预报已发出。
You may notice that this, the latitude and the longitude of the second prediction is already different from the first one.
绕动动度，动5分，动动秒，落点纬度为北纬。
We're just hearing the latitude and longitude being announced there by the ground control of the second projected landing point for the return capsule.
靠实收复完成。
Okay.
All right. Well, let's go to our
We heard the voice
Wulei
that the space
now.
station, the ground station has already captured the vehicle.
Okay.
Which means that the data link between the vehicle and the ground station has established.
Okay, so that's getting closer once again to target. Well, let's go to our reporter Wulei, who's at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center for another update.
黄河发现目标。
Wulei, what do you have for us?
Yes, and we just know that the propulsion module and the re-entry module has been separated, and now the re-entry module is now on its way back to Earth. And you just heard that here at Beijing Aerospace Control Center, the ground team have already updated the second landing point for the re-entry module. We know that during this period of time, they will update 4 times about the precise landing point for the Shenzhou-15 re-entry module. And we know that over the next few minutes, the re-entry module will re-enter the atmosphere, and we know the temperature on the outside of the re-entry module will reach over 1,000 degrees Celsius. But with the help of the high technology and new materials, the tachonauts inside will have a relatively stable temperature inside, and they will experience some time of black hole communication, which means that they cannot talk to the Beijing Aerospace Control Center here. But we know that here, this is a place that the ground team talked to different groups of people here now standing by, including the helicopters as well as the ground search and rescue team. And now all the teams are standing by here to welcome the 3 tachonauts back on Earth. And here, actually last November, on the last day of November at Zhuquan Satellite Launch Center, I was there witnessing the launch of the Shenzhou-15 crew, and now they are coming back. And I have to say that how time flies. They have conducted 4 times of spacewalks, and they have conducted several dozens of space experiments, including some medical experiments, microgravity experiments, and now they are coming back. And all their colleagues, families, and friends are waiting them for their safe return. So over the next few minutes, we will see the re-entry module re-entering the atmosphere, and the main parachute will open on the place that is about 10 kilometers above the ground, and the small engines on the re-entry module will fire again. That is about 1 or 2 meters above the ground. So that is to say that when the re-entry module successfully landed, the Beijing Aerospace Control Center will announce the successful mission of the Shenzhou-15 crew. So along with these space engineers, and we are reporters also waiting here to witness this historical moment.
Yeah, and they're so close to home now. It's exciting, but also very nervous time for everyone involved. Thank you so much, Wulei, at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. And we've been hearing there kind of throughout our correspondence piece there that from ground control and various ground control that they have the target locked.
So this is a video taken by the ground station with the optical telescope.
And
probably
the
this
bright
is
dot we're seeing there is the capsule, right?
So probably this is an infrared video image. You can see the bright spot is the re-entry capsule itself. We can see that it has a very, very long trail. The trail is the ablative materials. When it was heated by the aerodynamic heating, it will be vaporized and form the plasma. So at this moment, it is, as Professor Zhang has mentioned, it is in the blackout area because the plasma will block the radio waves between the vehicle and the ground station.
Is it already in the blackout zone now?
I believe it.
The space capsule.
Yeah.
So at this point, no signals, nothing from the astronauts inside.
Although the communication is blocked, but still the readers and the optical telescopes on the ground station can track the precise trajectory of the vehicle.
So they're now about 80 to 100 kilometers above Earth? Is that where they are?
It's between 40 kilometers to 100.
50.
So at this moment, the G-forces acting on the bodies of the astronauts is very high. As I mentioned, usually the peak value is more than 3 times of their own mass. So they will feel this not very, very comfortable. Moreover, besides the G-forces, there are also vibration because the aerodynamic forces acting on the re-entry capsule will also causes very, very intensive vibration. So it's really not very comfortable.
I mean, when you think about the kind of training that these astronauts have to undergo, it's incredibly tough on the body. And there's the G-force training, but Professor, you were also telling me earlier about the sleep deprivation training that they'd have to go through as well, right? Just to be able to, endure all kinds of emergency situations.
In some emergency cases, they cannot sleep for even 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
That's a long time. So the tracking, I think the tracking phase is over now.
Just as you have already asked, I don't believe that they will have any sleep just after the undocking from the space station, because there are so many critical steps.
Exactly, but also, I mean, no doubt they're excited to come back as well. That too. It's tense, isn't it, for them?
双城发现目标。
Okay, our Shenzhou ground station has already captured the target.
What happens to the parts of the spacecraft that they shedded already, Professor Zhang?
So the service module would have already burned up. At the very beginning of this video, this infrared image, we saw a larger thing moving sideways away from the main re-entry module. That's the service module. It would have already burned up. The earlier ejected sort of orbital module will still be up there and enter.
金山回收1号光谱完成。
Space waste or anything for.
We just heard that the recovery one has already captured the vehicle. The recovery one is what we call the USB telecontrol and telecommunication system. So it means that at this moment, probably I believe that it already go out of the blackout area.
That's right. Sorry. So they're out of the blackout area. So just a reminder for our audience, and that's the area where communication is lost with the astronauts with the return capsule there.
Also, we heard a voice that the recovery 2 has already captured the vehicle. The recovery 2 is a vehicle, is a ground vehicle with a radar, which can even gather the trajectory during the blackout area.
北京明白。
So more communication there from the various ground stations.
雄鹰报告，雄鹰1号收到243信号，报告完毕。
Also, we heard voice from the Xiongyin. Xiongyin means the helicopter.
The helicopter for the search teams?
Yes, for the rescue team.
So even though we don't have any direct communication from the astronauts from the return capsule itself, obviously there's all these ground stations and various teams still tracking and keeping an eye on their return. So this period lasts how long in the blackout zone? Usually?
Several minutes, usually no more than 4 minutes. So you may notice from this image that the re-entry capsule is much slower now. And the next critical step will be the deployment of several chutes. Actually speaking, there are 3 sets of chutes.
安西跟踪结束。
It's another announcement of tracking by
Yeah.
various monitoring stations that it's
沙洲跟踪结
their
束。
tracking phase is done.
At the altitude about 10 kilometers, the speed of the vehicle will be lower than 300 meters per second. And at this moment, it will deploy the first parachute.
So we should be able to get signal back. We should be able to hear from the astronauts very soon, right?
Yeah.
It's would have been a few minutes.
Usually, after deployment of the parachute, the commander inside the capsule will report their status.
Right, so they need to lower the speed below the speed of sound to be able to open the parachute.
How would they do that?
长城报告，
Just by rubbing against the air like
Oh,
they're
okay,
doing
okay,
right
so
now.
it's a
Yeah.
natural,
10公里头。
natural process. Nothing needed for them to do. I mean, it's obviously the complete opposite of the launch, right? Where you want to decrease drag, but this is coming back. You want to have that slow down process. So that's
Okay.
the parachute that.
出主
Parachute
伞，
deployed.
What? This is the
3D animation. This is the
simulated
3D animation,
image.
which represents the real status.
But you said 3 parachutes, so right now we're looking at the main parachute.
Yeah,
right?
this
That
is
has
the main parachute. It is very huge.
And then the other 2 parachutes would open up on the side.
The total area of the main parachute is 1,200 square meters.
1,200 square meters.
Yeah, very, very huge. But we haven't seen the videos now. It seems that it's cloudy in the landing site.
And how much would that sort of these weather factors affect the landing?
各号注意，我是北京。下面通报
I mean,
返回舱第
telemetry,
3次落点预
like,
报。
like we're seeing the
落
video
点
right
精度
now,
东
will be
经
effective.
幺
But
洞洞度
since they
动
already
5分
established
动4秒，
established the
东经幺洞
connection
洞
with
度
the
动5分
with the
动4秒
capsule,，
落点纬度
data is being
北纬
directly
41度
streamed
3
from
拐
that
分
capsule, so
55
it
秒，
shouldn't
北纬
affect the
41度
first
3拐分
We're just
55
getting
秒
the。third projection from the
Yeah.
landing site.
Yes, we as you mentioned, we just heard the voice of the commander. He announced the prediction for the third time.
Yeah, we're looking at the red dot there.
The landing site.
I haven't been keeping track, but I don't know how far off that is from the first projection site.
Yeah.
If
正
that's
确
fairly
蒙氏
close.
But still, it's very cloudy. You can see in the landing site. And we just see in the previous screen is the, as we mentioned, is the 3D animation. But the 3D animation is based on the telemetry data received from the vehicle, so it can represent the real condition.
So it just announced that all the tracking signals are all normal, in working order.
We don't need to actually see it. As long as it's dropping its altitude at correct speed, then the main
will
shield will
land.
open correctly. Yeah.
各号注意，6公里头。
It's 6 kilometers above now.
Just 6 kilometers away from Earth right now.
Yeah.
So it's traveled, dozens of kilometers in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. And after the deployment of the main parachute,
That little spot that we're seeing now on that big screen, is that the capsule? Essentially, you see that little flashing, that tiny little flashing spot? Is that the capsule that we're looking at?
That should be. Well, those
you
two
cannot see that very clearly.
神舟15号
There is a，
我是北
tiny,
京，
tiny little
返回
flash spot.
舱即将着陆于东风着陆场预定位置。
They just announced that the capsule will soon be landing at the Dongfeng landing site.
Oh, we heard the voice from the crew.
Ah, that's great.
抛防热大底，雄鹰。
So they'll be
The heating
shedding
shield.
the
The heating
heat
shield is
shield, right, at
jettisoned.
the bottom. Why do they drop the heating shield?
Because the temperature is very high,
Okay.
so we must jettison that to avoid the heat will transfer to the inside of the capsule. And moreover, you see that we have some devices at the bottom of the vehicle, the retro rocket, as Professor Zhang has mentioned, just about 1 meter above the surface of the Earth.
That
So
will
the retro
operate.
rocket will work. So we must expose the retro rocket by jettisoning the heating shield.
So they had that rocket on just to, again, to reduce the speed of the rocket from landing.
Four very small solid rocket engines to reduce the speed to about 1 to 2 meters per second.
If they didn't use that rocket, what sort of a speed would it be dropping at, Professor Zhang?
8 meters per second, so
Okay,
it's
so
like
it's
a
a big
full
difference.
100-meter dash. Dashing straight into the wall, it's still gonna hurt. So they have that last step. So
and also at the bottom of the re-entry capsule, we have what we call a gamma ray altimeter, which can measure gamma ray altimeter.
Okay.
We use gamma ray to measure the distance between the bottom and the surface of the Earth very precisely. So with this device, we can send the command very precisely to ignite the retro rocket. And also before that, we also have two very important steps. One is to releasing all the propellants remained in the re-entry capsule because it is toxic. So we must release all the propellants. And also another step is to raise the chairs of the astronauts. And also this also provide another dumping of impact energy when touch down the Earth.
So Professor Zhang, you were likening that 8 meters per second to a 100-meter dash, but if with the rocket with the rocket engines on, that would be equivalent
Maybe just walking speed.
Okay, that's
so
walking speed is good.
and their seat is being raised, so there's more of a cushion when they hit it.
So they feel less impact.
Right.
神舟15号报告，提升完成，后控制翼发出，完毕。
北京明白。
Shenzhou-15 crew is reporting their status.
They are now so close to home. But this next part obviously is a lot slower. What sort of speed are they moving at right now?
Oh, it seems that we've already seen the huge main parachute.
Yeah, that round circle in the middle.
Not very
and that's
clear.
the capsule dangling on the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah.
北京雄鹰报告，空中分队照返回舱收拢飞行，报告完毕。
And that's another report from the airborne search crew.
It seems that it's a little bit foggy in the landing site, not very clear.
No, we're still able to make out the frame of the parachute there.
Oh, okay,
that's much
great.
clearer.
They're dumping fuel.
And will the teams have to retrieve all the parts that's been shedded as well, once that's on Earth?
Yeah.
Or the heat shield as well as the engines, that all has to be taken back and...
Right, and the re-entry capsule itself will probably be on display somewhere for kids to see. Yeah.
But from this video, we can see that it's a little bit windy in the landing site area.
But again, we're still only seeing one main parachute there, so
the other two happens earlier before this, so they drag this main chute out. Yeah.
I see. So now it's just the one parachute that gets
There
down.
is first it will deploy a leading chute, and then a drogue chute. Then the last one is a main parachute.
So compared to before, obviously when they're traveling at a faster speed, it seems to be a pretty steady trajectory. Now they're really shifting around a lot, being swung around
because of the
wind,
right?
But
they can feel that inside too,
they can
right?
feel.
The astronauts are feeling.
They can feel, and also that's
they don't get motion sickness.
with the deployment of the main parachute, they've already been very, very safe.
北京明白。
So at this point, it's very much safe.
Yeah, they've already been very safe.
Yeah, it's just better they're comfortable when they hit the ground. They probably get vertigo regardless whether they're swinging right now. But
actually speaking, there is a very remarkable impact they can feel at the moment deployment of the parachute.
So we just had that the rescue teams the ground rescue teams are already on their way.
Yeah.
And they've departed, heading towards the
回收2号，跟踪正常。
projected landing site.
So we can hear voice from the commander that the recovery tool is still tracking the trajectory.
光学吊舱捕获返回舱承载下降，报告完毕。
So we've locked the target on the capsule.
雄鹰2号 means the second helicopter.
Right?
Yeah.
5 helicopters, you said, and a massive crew.
One is in command, and
ready to land
the other 4 are in the search team.
How big is that compared to the sort of standard that's internationally used? Would you know? Is that a fairly kind of standard sized search?
The U.S. lands in the ocean, so they will have less helicopters, but they will have more ships. So yeah.
Still, we need several minutes for the touchdown.
We just had another update there saying that the tracking is all in order.
Yeah.
And that's the capsule there, the Shenzhou-15 3-man crew.
And besides this main parachute, you know that there is also a backup chute. If anything wrong happened to the main parachute, the backup chute will also, it can ensure the safety of our astronauts.
So I just want to point out here that we can see that the capsule was really charred on one side.
Yeah, but you know that's the rope will be controlled to finally it changed its direction to this attitude to a vertical direction.
So even with the heat shield, it's still completely blackened. The
right on one side because it comes in at an angle. It's not straight faced down. It has a very its center of gravity is shifted from away from down in the middle, which is why it has a tendency to roll over once it lands.
We can also very clearly see that, you know, you can see that at the upwind direction, the ablative material has been heated to a very dark color. Where on the other side, it's in not in a very dark color.
Yeah, that's what Professor Zhang was just telling us. So which side is up right now for the astronauts? Are they're sitting down, so they're facing the sky, or are they facing up?
Yeah,
so ideally, how would this capsule land to make it easier for them to come out, Professor Zhang?
Depending on what do you mean by ideal, because if it lands upright, it's probably easier for them to adjust to gravity. But you know, you need additional ladders and everything.
So when we say up, when you said upright, lands upright as in landing as it looks now, just coming down straight onto the ground. Okay. But that's the astronauts facing up towards the sky. That would be easier for them to adjust to gravity.
Just what you mentioned, just before this mission, only we have two cases. The first is Shenzhou-6 mission, also Mr. Fei Jinlong inside, and the other is Shenzhou-13 mission. Only in these two missions, our Shenzhou capsule landed vertically.
And it doesn't need to. I mean, once it's on its side, it's actually easier for them to climb out. You don't need ladders or anything.
What if it landed on its side, but the astronauts were facing down because they're strapped into their chairs, right? So they could potentially be sort of suspended and facing down onto
that will not be very comfortable.
And what would happen if, say, the hatch is the part that touches the ground first, is facing the ground? They'd have to turn the capsule, the crew?
It doesn't really stay that way. If you look at the shape of it, you have to be landing very carefully on its top to that just doesn't happen.
It would be quite a fluke, right, if it did happen that way.
Well, it will touch down soon.
Another update there that the tracking is all in order. And this parachute as well, so you're saying, Professor Yang, that it's 1,200 square meters, right? So that's equivalent of several basketball courts, right? So how heavy is it? This parachute
it's very light. It's very light. Only no more than 100 kilograms.
So we're hearing more updates from various teams.
We can soon see the working of the. We can see some smoke from the retro rocket.
We will be seeing some.
I believe it will touch down within several seconds.
So it's very. It has to be very light because they obviously don't want to take any more, have any more more weight than they need, right? This landing process.
各号注意，我是北京，下面通报返回舱第4次落点预报。落点经度：东经1洞洞度动4分39秒，东经1洞洞度动4分39秒，落点纬度北纬412度3拐分59秒，北纬412度3拐分59秒， 北京第4次落点预报已发出。
Well,
雄鹰
we believe that you can see two videos, one from the helicopter and the other one from the ground vehicle.
So this is above.
Exactly. So it will touch down, I believe, within several seconds.
How far do you think it is from ground now?
59秒，报告完毕。
回车2号，跟踪结束。
正确，蒙氏。
明白。
Oh, there it is.
Okay, we can see the
各号注
smoke.
意，返回舱着陆。
Touchdown for the
Touchdown.
Shenzhou-15. They're back to Earth.
Welcome home.
Indeed.
北京雄鹰报告。
And the astronauts, actually, the 02, probably Mr. Deng Qingming, must conduct the operation of cutting the.
From the inside. From the inside, yeah.
Yeah,
So that is the Shenzhou-15 crew landing back on Earth after a 6-month stay up at the China Space Station.
Yeah. We can still see
Welcome
the
home
smoke.
to Fei Jinlong, Deng Qingming, and Zhang Lu.
北京雄鹰报告，雄鹰已到达着陆现场上空。
Right, we're hearing an announcement there from one of the search teams that they reached the landing site.
So again, this time it's not in a vertical position. Because
this is the camera, presumably from the different from the closest
from the
rescue team.
helicopter, from that
北京
helicopter.
第4次落点预报已发出
you know, that's
后
the
续由
reason
东风按计划组织
it's not
搜救
in
回
the
收工作
vertical is because the center of its mass or the centroid of the vehicle has some deviation from its symmetrical axis. So that is the reason when it touches down, usually
It's
it
more
will lie
likely on its
down.
side, right?
Yeah. So although a vertical landing will be more comfortable, but usually it seldom happens.
So this sort of landing, they're essentially landing kind of sitting down, right?
As I mentioned,
Imagining like how we're sitting right now, but touching the ground like
that
this.
only happened in Shenzhou-6 mission and the Shenzhou-13 mission.
The last one was also on its side as well.
Yeah. So you can see how fast the rescue team, they've
Yeah,
already...
you can see people running towards the capsule there.
Yeah, they've arrived.
Got 2 helicopters next to nearby.
So at least
this is
3
fantastic.
helicopters has arrived. We can see 2 in the video, and the other one is taking the video.
Well, how nervous were you, Professor Yang, during this?
I'm very nervous. It is because you know that for every flight mission, the launch and the re-entry is always the most dangerous part.
It's fraught with risks, isn't it?
Yes. You know that there are 18 astronauts lost their lives in history, and 11 of them lost their life during the re-entry.
It is definitely a huge risk. But then in the context of how many astronauts have been to space and come back, 18, that is a fairly small number, right?
Yeah. Because there are already hundreds of astronauts visiting outer space.
So I mean, overall, this whole process is obviously it's done to a very safe standard. Otherwise, people wouldn't be taking this.
Especially with the Shenzhou program, it's so mature that I'm not perhaps less nervous than Professor Yang.
Professor Yang came in this morning saying, had trouble sleeping, right? Because you were nervously excited for this whole process.
I'm more nervous than the astronauts.
But Professor Zhang, you did okay overnight.
Right, yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, I feel like we can talk about this now. Earlier you don't want to say anything that's unlucky or to jinx anything, but it's definitely a very risky procedure for them to come back. I mean, even if it's safe, even if it's already done to the highest standard, there is always the possibility.
Right. We can see from the video that the parachute, the main parachute, has already been cut off. I believe this is conducted by Mr. Deng Qingming or 02.
How they just press something, right, and obviously it just shoots off the parachute? Is that
Yeah, there's a button on the side.
东京交通动度3分53秒，北纬412度
We're just hearing the latitude and longitude and position of the return capsule being announced there by the air teams.
Just to tell the ground teams where to go.
And
you can see them all gathering there, congregating.
Yes, we just heard from the voice from the rescue team, reporting the final coordinate, the latitude and the longitude of the landing point. And also, that it is very interesting that this coordinate is very close, very close to the launch pad.
It's full circle. They've come back. But I'm curious, why are they running there on foot? Would it not be much faster if they were in vehicles?
Well, the vehicle hasn't got there yet. These are all helicopter people.
These are all they're all coming off from the helicopters. Oh, I see. That's a lot of people in the helicopters.
So a lot of heavy equipment come with the convoy. So if they don't arrive soon enough, they'll have to rough it by sitting in a tent or something. Otherwise, they can have nice chambers with restrooms and everything.
How big is China's rescue team in terms of the number of people? Must be hundreds?
It'll be hundreds, yeah. I can't remember, 400, 500 something.
So they've checked out the inside of the capsule, and update is that everything is normal. It's all looking good. How long do you think it will be before they can get the astronauts out of there?
Before that, the ground team will use the lead cover to block what I mentioned, the gamma ray altimeter, because it's radioactive and it is dangerous. So that their first step is to cover the gamma ray altimeter, and also they must check the leakage of the propellants because it is toxic.
So all the air teams are now at the landing site.
Yes,
all 5 helicopters.
We just heard the voice of the commander that they will conducting the environment detection.
Of the outside, right?
Yeah. Because as I mentioned, the propellant is toxic. It's hydrazine. Hydrazine is toxic, so they must check if it's safe enough for the ground team.
So we can't really see very clearly what the rescue teams are wearing, but presumably they're in protective masks, protective suits and stuff. And they are opening the hatch now?
No.
They're
only when they ensure that the environment is safe enough.
Right, and then preparing for the next.
And they're all congregating on one side because the other side has gamma rays still blasting out.
But we heard the voice that the hatch is already open.
Oh, it's already open.
Announcement just now. So once they open the hatch, I mean, the astronauts, are they capable of walking out by themselves? Or there will definitely need to be people going in to help
Probably not.
Them, right?
They're still wearing their intravehicular spacesuits, so it would be really cumbersome if they can, even if they can.
So they even need a few people, search and rescue teams, to go inside to assist.
What we discussed is what we call the readaptation of the gravity. It needs several, a lot of hours.
我是北京，东风请讲。
返回舱舱门已打开，
Right,
舱内
it's
外
on one side.
生化环境检测正常。
There it is. We just heard the other announcement saying environment testing, everything's come back normal, data is all normal, and that they've opened the hatch. So the gamma rays is at the bottom of the space capsule.
Yeah.
东方雄鹰报告，请问请讲。一天医保人员已进舱，报告完毕。
They've entered
The medical team has already entered the capsule.
That was the announcement that we heard just now in Chinese. And then there will soon be, I think with the last landing as well, some medical vehicles coming by, right? And there'll be one for each of the astronauts.
They will first help the astronauts help them to conduct the readaptation of gravity.
What
maybe give some medicine, water, and so on.
报告完毕。东风明白。
They're taking samples from inside the capsule. I think.
They're taking samples now. We heard the announcement. They're taking samples from inside the capsule.
Yeah.
But I believe at this moment the astronauts had already opened the face masks of their helmets.
They're breathing Earth air.
Yes, for the first time after half a year.
I wonder what that tastes like in the desert.
Brisk morning air.
What would the temperature be right now in the Gobi Desert? I mean, this time in the day, it's probably fairly cold, isn't it? Must be about, I mean, definitely above 0, but it would not be hot, would it?
My friends told me that at this moment, probably it's about 17 degrees Celsius.
Oh, 17, okay. So that's a comfortable readjustment temperature and not
It's the right moment at this season in Gobi Desert.
正在建立警戒区，报告完毕。
So the people in the white suits are presumably the medical staff?
Yeah. Because very violent movements may cause hurt to the astronauts because they are still, that's as Professor Zhang mentioned, their muscles and cardiovascular system were weakened during these 6 months. Although we have all kinds of exercise and other countermeasures such as the nutrition to avoid the influence of the microgravity to the health of the astronaut, but still they need a relative long period for the adaptation.
So this adaptation, period that they have to go through, is that what's it like for them right now? Is it more that they would find it difficult to stand, or is it more just that it's done to help prevent harm at a later stage?
Usually they will feel very difficult to stand up.
So very weak.
Very weak.
They feel very weak coming back to Earth. But obviously, there's also the preventative side as well, to prevent any harm being done. They exert themselves.
They might be feeling a little dizzy too.
Is that from the shaking, or is that just more from the change in gravity?
Just from the change in the gravity.
Right.
But that this is a normal case. But in an abnormal case, when they have an emergency landing, they must have the ability to survive before the arrival of the rescue team. So in this circumstance, they must depend on their own.
I think we're seeing a lot of vehicles arriving now, so that's all the ground teams congregating on the landing site. And the area has been cordoned off.
That inside the capsule, they have some water, some food, and even they have pistols.
In case you got wolves and
Oh, right.
Maybe an emergency landing, they will land in the forest. Maybe there are beasts.
They are prepared for every eventuality. So there's another announcement of the landing site.
So this is reported by the ground team.
Okay. So this is for the benefit of the rest of the rescuers.
So this is the final coordinate of the landing point.
东风雄鹰报告。
请讲。
Oh, they must be thrilled right now.
架设开通完毕，
It's still
报告
a
完
long
毕。
process before they're coming out.
都不明白。
And coming out to a beautiful view as well. Look at the sun.
So in the dawn of the Gobi Desert.
That's right.
Very, very beautiful scene. And the three medical vehicles, three vehicles, with each astronaut share vehicle will arrive soon. And that even there are toilets inside the vehicle.
All right.
北京，我是深圳15号。
That wasn't it.
我是北京。
We're hearing from the Shenzhou-15 crew.
神舟
That was
15号
the voice
请
of
讲。
the Shenzhou-15 crew.
我们牙前着陆，我们3个人感觉都很好，状态很好，身体很好，谢谢。
They
That
just
is
said
the voice of
Shenzhou-
Commander Fei Jinlong.
That's Fei Jinlong saying that they've landed. All three of them feel good. They're in a good physical condition, and they
我
are
是东山，感
good.
觉良好，完毕。
北京明白，祝贺神舟15号顺利返航，你们辛苦了，向你们致以崇高的敬意。我们在北京迎接你们凯旋。
And that's the ground control congratulating the Shenzhou-15 crew on their return.
That
They've had a long journey.
02, Mr. Deng Qingming, and 03, Mr. Zhang Lu also repeated their own status. That Mr. Deng Qingming has a nickname called Grandpa Deng because before his flight mission, he's already had a grandchildren.
He's so young. He's 57, I think he is, right? I mean, in his 50s, already a grandfather.
Yeah, but his daughter has already had kids before his flight.
动拐秒，落点经度，东经。
That's another announcement of the coordinates of the landing point.
落点纬度，北纬
And we're hearing it now. That's the coordinates being
Some more vehicles are arriving.
and more rescue vehicles arriving. So this is the Gobi Desert. This in the inner Mongolia region, autonomous region in northern China, and that's the 3 Shenzhou-15 astronauts safely back home. And now for the rest of their recuperation, how long could that take? I think with the 14, they were I guess in quarantine or in rehabilitation for about 6 months or so, weren't they? Half a year?
Not so long.
Not so long?
Not so long. Usually 1 or 2 weeks for quarantine.
Okay.
Because that's to avoid any infection. Because their body is their physical condition is really weak. To avoid the infection of the microbes on the earth.
Well, so very different environment.
Even their relatives cannot contact with them directly during this quarantine procedure, 1 or 2 weeks, and then they will be the recovery stage for about 3 to 4 weeks maybe. At this moment they can train to stand up and walk very gently, and finally they can be completely recovered after several months.
Okay, so a few months.
A few months observation period after the recovery therapies.
And this will all have to be done at a center designed for this. They wouldn't be
in
doing
Beijing,
this at home, right?
just in Haidian district, the astronaut center of China.
But after the quarantine period and when they're doing the rehabilitation, their families can visit potentially.
After the quarantine, because they've been in a sterile environment for so long, their immune system is probably weaker, so you don't really want to get them sick.
Definitely.
东部闽吧。
So the area's been cordoned off.
东风雄鹰报告，
雄鹰请讲。
Just hearing
雄
various
鹰2
announcements
号
there from
已在
search
现场
teams
降落，报告完毕。
updating on their status.
So the second helicopter reported have already landed near the landing point.
That was probably the one that was giving us the aerial views.
Yeah. So this is the second flight mission of Mr. Fei Jinlong and the first mission of Mr. Deng Qingming and Mr. Zhang Lu. And that's Mr. Deng Qingming has a very, very touching story to us. You know that he is the last one in the first batch of astronauts of China who are still keep his training. You know that some of his colleagues has already retired and they have never had the chance to visit outer space.
He's with the first batch.
Such as Mr. Chen Quan, Mr. Wu Jie, Mr. Zhao Chuandong. It is very great pity for them. But Mr. Deng Qingming still insists on training, and finally he get the chance to conduct this mission.
I think that we were just hearing an announcement that they've taken samples of the environment inside the capsule.
We can see the medical teams in white uniforms. They will help the astronauts, and we believe that Commander Fei Junlong will come out first.
东风雄鹰报告，
It's a very small
capsule
gap for them to have to get through,
the
right?
diameter is 2.3 meters.
2.3 meters. What about the hatch itself?
The hatch is less than 1 meter.
It looks very, very small.
The diameter is less than 1 meter.
They've
very,
taken
very narrow.
samples of different microbes inside the capsule as well. And earlier they took some gas samples.
Yeah.
So this is all obviously very important for research data, right?
Yeah. And also there are some scientific research results, some materials made in outer space, and some samples prepared.
So apart from say gas and microbes, what else would they normally take from the kind of samples that they would take from the inside the capsule, Professor Zhang?
I think those are the main things. Those are just this similar sample as you get from the space station. So this is for engineering purposes, for the life support system and stuff, to see whether the composition of the air is suitable and all that sort of things. So is it coming out?
东风雄鹰报告，
雄鹰请讲。
We hear more updates from
伽马源防覆盖已安
search
装，
teams.
报告完毕。
So they've covered up the radiation source.
Yeah. As I mentioned, the cover to the gamma ray altimeter has already been mounted.
Right, so that's
to
now
avoid the
safe.
dangerous radiation.
And that's now safe for the search teams to go around.
Yeah. Quite right. So before the cover is mounted, the ground team cannot go to the backside of the vehicle because the influence of the radiation.
Let's just get a little background on the three men who are in the capsule right now. So Fei Jinlong is the captain, he's the commander, he's 58 years old, and he was chosen as a member of China's first team of astronauts in 1998, and he also commanded the Shenzhou-15 mission in 2005, so he really is a veteran at this. And Deng Qiming, as Professor Yang was saying, 57 but already a grandfather.
Yeah.
Also chosen for the first team of astronauts, and he served as a backup crew for more than 20 years, right? And now for the Shenzhou 9, 10, and 11, and now he is here with Shenzhou-15, his first flight.
And also, Mr. Zhang Lu is the last
the youngest,
one.
Right?
Is the last one in the second batch of China's astronaut team who
this is also
conducted
his first flight.
His maiden flight.
So I think we're already on the third batch now.
Third batch.
So the ones who went up with Shenzhou-16.
Shenzhou-16, there are two members from the third batch.
Right.
And you know that's for my personal view, the second batch is very, very lucky. There are 7 astronauts. All of them have already had their flight missions.
No backups.
Yeah. And you know that Mr. Fei Jinlong is act as the chief of the astronaut team for several years before.
Right. They have finished the installation of the astronauts' seats.
So both of Mr. Fei Jinlong's mission, he acted as the commander. He is also the commander of the Shenzhou-6 mission. So this is
so they're in
he's
steady
also
hands.
the
The Shenzhou-15 are in steady hands.
He's always the commander.
Do you think they'll be coming out? We see the cameras coming, so that means they're coming out very soon.
So you may notice the ground team very different. The uniform are in different colors, so they belong to the different team.
Right, the white is the medical, the research taking the samples.
And also there are staff from the Shenzhou spaceship system.
Do you think we'll see them walking out by themselves, but assisted, or they'll be carried out?
Not.
Carried out on a stretcher, possibly?
Somebody will catch them on the hatch at the hatch.
The ground team will help them to get out of the vehicle.
But so they're unlikely to be walking in any way, even if assisted.
They'll be carried to their seat, give a short speech, and then probably move to the chambers.
I believe your colleagues is already there.
I definitely see a lot of activity, flurry of excitement there.
Usually the team, according to the traditional, they will be introduced. They will be interviewed by the China Media Group or by those maybe the reporter from the Xinhua News Agency.
Oh, I mean, they're no doubt excited, but they also must be incredibly tired as well after this long journey.
Well, also, that some of my friends from the major media of China also get up very early and go together with the rescue team.
Like the 3 of us here.
And I imagine their family and their friends are sitting around right now, around the TV and watching as well, waiting to see them.
Oh, they must be so excited, and they haven't seen their loved ones for 6 months.
But usually they will wait for them in the airport in Beijing.
That should be today, right?
Today. Absolutely, this afternoon probably.
Yeah.
So after some simple check on medical conditions, they will be transported from this place to the Dongfeng airport, very close to the launch site, and then with the airplane fly back to Beijing.
I mean, this is a normal wait, right?
How
long it's taking to have the astronauts
very,
come
very
out. This is quite a normal duration.
Just to give them time to.
And that's the special seat that there will be. Is that a seat that they're carrying? Yeah, that's the seat for the astronauts to sit on once they're carried out. We're hearing in the announcement there that the teams that are helping the astronauts leave their seat in the capsule.
Yes. They will leave
So
their
any
seats
second.
with the assistance of the ground team.
So I can see with that chair there that their legs, they're keeping their legs and propped up.
Yeah.
But I think in some other countries, when astronauts come back, you do see them sort of walking but assisted as well.
That depends on the duration, how long they will stay in outer space.
Right.
You know that for some flight, for instance,
Like
the
these private
space
crews have been going up there,
the
right?
space shuttle mission, usually even the longest shuttle mission will not no longer than 1 month.
Right.
So they can walk down.
Right. So that doesn't have too much impact on their bodies.
Yeah. And you can see also they prepared a quilt on the seat because it's fairly a little bit cold for the astronauts.
And also, I guess, to make the seat more comfortable for them.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe this is the seat prepared for the commander, Fei Jinlong.
Oh, I think they're carrying, it looks like they're
正在
carrying
组
someone
织
out
动
there.
摇航天员出舱，报告完毕。
这是你吗？
Now for Mr. Fei Jinlong to get out of the vehicle.
And you see the teams there helping to move somebody out. Is that Commander Fei?
Yeah.
Welcome home.
东风，雄鹰报告，
熊请讲。
动摇航天员已出舱，报告完毕。
这是你吗？
I mean, this is a procedure. It doesn't mean he has to have people carry him.
It's just
like
to be
this.
on the
It's
safe
just-
side,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That is Commander Fei Jinlong there being made comfortable on the seat,
Yeah.
getting wrapped up.
And
We're not close enough to see their expressions yet. Is that his bag that's just come out with him?
I believe this is
his
reporters.
luggage.
你好，欢迎回家。
回家了。
此时此刻有什么想向全国人民表达的？
首先要向祖国人民报
First of all,
告，
I would like to report to my
我们
country
神
and
舟
people
15号
the
飞
Shenzhou
乘组
15 crew
完成了在
has
轨所有的
successfully
工作和任务，
completed all assigned work and
现在
tasks in
顺利
orbit,
回到了
and
祖国。
we have returned to Earth
我
safely.
们感觉良好。
We are feeling good.
呃，
Out of the capsule with the Shenzhou-15 crew, and we heard him there saying that he feels good and he's looking smiley. So definitely in good spirits. Who do you think will be the second one to come out?
It should be Deng Qingming.
So sort of in order of seniority?
Right. There's 01, 02, 03, the
right,
designation
of
of
course
the astronauts. Yeah.
As I mentioned, 02, Mr. Deng Qingming is in charge of cutting the parachute because only there is a button near him.
雄鹰报告，
And there's Commander Fei waving.
正在台送动摇航天员至一间19车，
So he's
报告完
01.
毕。
That's his serial
这是你
number,
吗
isn't it?
Yeah. And he's the commander.
And they'll be taking him now to the little medical van.
Yeah. The medical vehicle, there are 3 of this kind of vehicle
One for each of them.
each
雄鹰报告
astronaut.，
What sort of checkups would they likely be doing there? Just heart, blood?
Their biological parameters of their body. As I mentioned, there are even toilets prepared for them.
When would they
Very,
get
very
to,
comfortable.
When would they get to eat? I mean, presumably their body needs to adjust for a bit before they can
Yes,
take any
specially
foods,
prepared
right?
for them. Yeah.
Do we know what could be on the menu?
Not too salty, maybe.
Something healthy.
It's personalized now, but tradition is when they go out, they eat dumplings, and then when they come back, they eat noodles.
Personalizes and they might get to decide, might get to request what they would like to
Right,
eat.
probably different types of noodles.
这是你吗？
So you can see the orange ground vehicles is the medical ground vehicles for the prepared for the
There's 3 of
astronauts.
them there. So we just heard that the Deng Qingming is getting ready to come out as well.
Yeah.
So
you know that
even
for the Shenzhou-12 mission, we only have one vehicle for the astronaut. But since the Shenzhou-13 mission, we have 3 of these vehicles. So more comfortable for the astronauts.
Right, and more attention on them as well.
Yeah.
Each one gets a crew that they deserve. And that's the teams there preparing the seat for Deng, who will be coming out very soon.
雄鹰报告。
询问请讲。
动员航天员以台送至
And I think that's their luggage, isn't it? That little bag there, each of them. Or is that? Did they take that out of the capsule?
No, I think
oh no, that's something that's there.
雄鹰报告。
Oh, that's something the search teams probably.
Yeah, that came with the ground crew.
动两航天员已出舱，报告完毕。
There is Deng Qingming being lifted out and onto his seat, and he'll be soon taken to the medical van as well. Wrapping him up. It looks very windy there.
Yeah. So that's pretty good that they had a smooth landing, because wind can be a problem.
Can make it very shaky.
Right.
And we'll be hearing his
欢迎回家。
Welcome back
25年的
home.
坚持与努力，
After
此时此
25
刻
years
返
of
回地球，
persistence and
有
hard
什么
work,
心情想表达的？
would you like to say at this
我回
moment?
到地球的怀抱，回到
I'm
祖国
very
的怀抱
happy to be，back
看到
in
这
the
么多亲
embrace
人，
of
我
my
非常非常的
home,
高
and
兴，
I'm
非常
very
非常
glad to
幸
see my family
此
and
时
the
此
loved
刻，我
ones.
想
I'm very happy.
感谢全
And
国
I would
人
like to
民
say
对
a
我
big
的
thank
我
you
们
to the
政府
people
的
of our
关注、
country
支持
for
和
their
鼓励
great。support and encouragement to our
也
crew,
感谢航天
and
一线
also
的
to
所
all
有
of
工作
our
人员的
colleagues on the
180多天
ground
的
for
日夜
their
陪伴。
accompany day and
此时此刻，
night
我
in
非
the
常想
past
念
more
家，
than
想
180
念家
days.
乡。
I really miss
25
my
年的
hometown and
非
my
典经历
family
让我
and
更加
friends,
坚信
and I
梦想的力
believe
量，
my
更加
experience let me
相信
believe that
坚持的
the
力量。
power of dreams
我还是
and
那样一句话，
perseverance.
无论年龄多大，
No
能够
matter
被祖国需
how
要，就
what
是
is
最
your
幸福的。
age, I'm always happy because I'm
谢谢，
needed
谢谢。
by my country. Thank you.
Well, that was a very upbeat, positive message there from him.
Yeah, and tie in with the earlier discussion of his perseverance, you know,
Right.
stay on.
Yeah, having been a backup for so
雄
many
鹰报
years,
告，
so many missions.
询问请讲。
正在台送动两航天员至一间医救车，报告完毕。
As the journalist mentioned, 25 years of waiting. So that's his dream comes true.
Right. Must have been worth the wait. And Deng is now also heading to his to his van for a checkup. So we've seen an interesting combination for the Shenzhou-16 crew that's gone up there. There's not just trained astronauts, but also a payload specialist, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he is the first one who is not from the PLA.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that a trend that we'll be seeing more of, do you think, in future
Definitely.
missions?
I believe so.
脱离航天员座椅。
Right. So in the
报告完
past,
毕。
usually have a really rudimentary spacecraft, so you have to, right.
But you know that among the third batch of astronauts of China, there are 4 payload experts, and Mr. Gui Haichao is the only one from universities.
Right. And Professor Zhang, you were saying, so now
Right.
that they've changed the...
Yeah. So in the past, you need really good pilots because the spacecraft are really simple, so it's mostly manual. Now it's more automatic, and then the spacecraft, the space station is very complicated. So you need a flight engineer to be able to sort of maintain it, and then obviously there's all these experiments that needs to be carried out. You need people. Right now, Professor Gui, the first civilian up there, he's still a journalist. He's actually his major is in spacecraft control. So later on, you'd have people working on specific experiments that are very difficult.
So more specialists.
Yeah, so they are actually really nothing to do with space industry whatsoever.
So you see a lot more scientists, perhaps?
A lot more scientists. So that really comes with
Engineers.
the more sophistication of the missions.
But the kind of combination, though, of usually always a 3-man crew or three women crew, but there will always have to be someone with a sort of astronautic background, with a PLA
you always
background, I think?
need at least a pilot,
right.
Just in case of emergencies.
Right.
Usually the commander should have the qualification to be a pilot.
I see. And
then
the
also
other two could
we
be
need another pilot
scientists
to be a backup of each other. So in any case, if someone has some, for instance, some serious ill, the other one can take his role as a pilot. This is extremely important in abnormal cases when something wrong happened during the launch or during the re-entry or during the docking phase.
Right.
So the pilot can take the role to
right.
save the whole mission.
So we're seeing the third astronaut from the Shenzhou-15 crew, Zhang Lu, being carried out now. 03. That's the number is.
Zhang Lu is also a previous pilot of the Air Force.
He's very young. He's only in his 40s, isn't he?
3名航天员已出舱。
Is he the youngest of all these
I believe
missions?
he was born in 1976, maybe.
北京明白。
Mr. Gui Haichao and Mr. Zhu Yangzhu are the youngest astronauts now in China, only 36 years old.
Oh, they're 30. Wow. That is young.
So both were born in 1986.
So each batch is roughly 10 years younger.
So here we'll be hearing from.
你好，张璐，我是总台央视的记者。
With CMG.
首次飞行就长
Your
达半
first
年，
trip to space
此时
lasted
此刻
6
回到祖国的怀抱。
months. Now you're
有
back
什么信息
to
想
Earth.
表达的？
Anything
后
you'd
续
like
有
to
什么
say
计
at
划？
this moment? Any plan
我想说
afterwards?
能够
I would like to
回到地
say
球沐着阳光下，真的挺好的。
I'm really thrilled to be back to
我们
my country safely.
神舟15号
I'm
任务已
feeling
经结束
good,
了，
and
然
the
后
mission
平安
of
回到了
Shenzhou-15
祖国的
is
怀抱。
over.
我现在心情十分的
And
激动
I'm。very excited.
我在空间站的时候，
In
也
the
经常
space
会在
station,
舷窗
I often
透过舷窗眺望，
looked out
想寻找
through
我
the
的祖国，
porthole
寻找我
window
的家
looking
乡，
for my
也寻
motherland,
找
my
瞭望洞庭
hometown,
湖。
and the
虽然说
Dongfeng
厚的
Lake.
云层总是遮挡我的视线，让我看
Unfortunately,
不
the
清
thick
楚。
clouds
但是我
always
知道
block my
祖
view,
国
so I
一直在
couldn't
我
see
心中，
clearly.
家
But
乡
I
也
know
一
my
直在我
mother
心中。
and my
现在
hometown
任务结束
always
之
been
后，我
in my
们
heart.
会尽快的调整好
Going
身体，
forward,
投
we
入
will
训练，
first get back
随
in
时准
shape
备
as
再
soon
次
as
出征太
possible,
空，
and
不负这个
also
伟
to
大的时代，
resume
不
training
负
to prepare
党和
ourselves
人民的
ready
重
for the
托。
next
最
mission,
后
and
还
we
有一句
will
话想
always
要与
live
大
out
家一起分
ourselves
享，
to the
这
trust
是
of
我
the
在神
party,
舟
the
15号
country,
任务之
and
后
the people.
经历4次出
Finally, I
征，
have some
的一段
words to
感
share
悟。
with you
沿
and
有
also
星
my
辰大海，胸怀
inspirations.
赤胆
I
忠
see
心
a。sea full of stars, and I give my heart
谢谢。
to the country. Thank
哎，
you.
非常好。
He seems to be in very good spirits. That's Zhang Lu,
Yeah.
our third and last astronaut with the Shenzhou-15 crew. So now the capsule is empty.
熊青鸟。
And he'll be lifted off to his van as well for his medical
航
checkups.
天员自一间一救车报告完毕。
I like that he said that it was nice to feel the sun on
Right.
Earth. Right. I mean, 6 months in space, just no concept of that, right?
Maybe
no
more
concept
favorite
of time,
is the
no
fresh
concept of
air.
warmth.
Fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks to be in a good spirit and a good house.
Definitely.
Yeah. He looks like he might be able to just walk on his own.
Maybe even run.
Right.
Look at him waving excitedly. So it's Fei Junlong, Deng Qingming, and Zhang Lu are now all safely back on Earth and getting ready for their recuperation. Do you think they'll be going back into, well, he was saying, you know, heading back into training soon for future
Right.
missions. So after just a couple of months rest, will they get a holiday?
Well, it's, as
各
I
号
mentioned
注意
earlier, 6
我是
months
北京
recovery period,
后续
and then like
东风
3 to
按计划
3
组
years
织
of
航天员
actual
一兼医
training
保
to go
和
back
返
up
回舱
again.
现场处置
2 or
工
3
作。
years of training
预祝
again, even though
雄鹰
they've been
猛士
once already,
返程顺利。
it still takes that long
东风
again for the next mission, potentially, to next
Yeah.
rotation.
雄鹰
Yeah, and also the mission
雄鹰明
profiles
白。
change
猛
all
士
the time. They have to be like
猛士明白。
really know everything. And then probably they will be leading up two new novices because he's now
Yeah, he's a veteran
experienced,
himself,
yeah,
right?
old hand. So he'd be the commander likely next time.
Wow, another period of 2 to 3 years. I mean, this is also to physically prepare them again, right? Now that they've adjusted to Earth, they've got to
Right, you can't go up there too often anyways. I mean, there's a total dosage of radiation you can receive. You can't just like keep going back and back.
What do you think the maximum is? How many trips can one possibly take in their lifetime?
Who was that person? There was an American female astronaut who's been here.
Peggy Whitson.
Right. How long was this?
The accumulated duration for Miss Peggy Whitson is more than 800 days in outer space.
800 days.
Yeah,
So
but the single trip, the longest record, is made by Mr. Polyakov from Russia. But he just passed away last year, and the record is 437 days in outer space when he was in the Mir space station.
That's in one stretch.
One trip, yep.
That's over a year. That's over a year up there.
Over a year.
So
also, that's there are some missions such as Gitov, Marorov. During their trip in the Mir space station, they also stay there for 1 year. And also there are another 2 expedition teams to the International Space Station, each one with a Russian cosmonaut, and the American astronaut stay there for 1 year, for about 1 year.
That's an important experiment in itself, right? Seeing the human endurance.
好，现在3名航天员已经转运到了旁边的3辆医监医救车上。那么在这车上呢，它可以进行简单的洗漱，还有换衣服。那么医生呢，也可以在车里对航天员进行更加细致的检查和健康评估。当然呢，他也会在车上，3名航天员可以吃上返回地球后的第一顿饭。那么按照惯例，一般会准备一些清淡的、容易消化的食物。同时呢，也会有一些个性化的地质食谱。我这里拿到了一份新的食谱哈，先说说洞山张璐。他的老家呢是湖南汉寿的，工作人员给他准备了常德米粉，还有汉寿的玉璧藕，这是一道当地的有名的菜肴。
So I think this is what Professor Zhang is saying about the personalized menu, right? So this is they're getting a whole new menu for their first meal back on Earth.
点了一份猪肉大葱的饺子。
And there's some dumplings being requested on the menu here.
That's also my favorite.
Pork and leek. Yeah, it's a classic.
早餐呢是一碗鸡汤面，但是他特别提了一个要求，就是要加2个煎鸡蛋，还再加上一份青菜。那么我想呢，一份舒适美味的菜肴，也为圆梦痛主的这一次太空之旅画上了一个圆满的句号。那么在现场的所有的队员呢，也是用这种精心、细心、贴心的准备，让航天员回到祖国怀抱，能够安心放心和暖心。好了，现场的情况我就先介绍到这里。
The ground crew showing their care for the astronauts and welcoming them back with a delicious, customized and personally prepared meal for each of them, giving them what they want after 6 months aboard, eating. I mean, they have a pretty varied diet up there as well, but it's nothing like a homemade food, right?
It's not fresh cooked.
No.
During the first the Crew 1 mission of the United States, I have a friend from Japan, the Japanese astronaut Suichi. Also, before his flight, also they prepared some Asian food for him.
I mean, food is what heals the soul, so. It's very important that they eat well, right?
And what you mentioned, dumpling, they can also enjoy dumpling in the space station, especially during the Chinese New Year.
Right, that's easy to pack and take up.
Not very easy.
No. But it's all kind of ready made and
it's already made, and you know that you cannot heat that in the station.
So how are they?
You can boil. You cannot boil that in the station.
So how would they have eaten?
So they have already been made. You just open the package and eat.
It's all ready made. Okay, I see. So there's no preparation going on in the station itself. It's all just sort of slightly heated up, and that's it.
Yeah.